Energy can be defined as what provides the fuel to supply movements and muscular contractions. Therefore, if energy levels are high, then movements will feel easier. If energy levels are low, then an athlete may feel they are not performing as well and could have to stop due to low energy levels. Our energy is provided from kilocalories or calories. The amount of energy we burn off during a day is known as our total daily energy expenditure. If an athlete is performing in a training session or match, then they may need to intake more calories to have enough energy to perform their sport. The difference between calories and kilocalories is that that 1 kilocalorie is 1,000 calories. Therefore, this helps us to track calories easily, as you're not having to add up, say, 30,000 calories a day. So that's why if you look at a packet of crisps, it will say K calories instead of just calories. The main source of calories are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Carbohydrates offer 4 calories for every gram consumed. This is exactly the same as protein, as 1 gram of protein offers 4 calories, whereas fats offer 9 calories per gram. This is all kilocalories, so these are technically 4,000 calories and 9,000 calories, but it's 4 kilocalories. Therefore, fats offer the most calories. However, carbohydrates contain glucose, which offer an increase in energy levels. Therefore, carbs are usually used for increasing energy expenditure, so due to long-lasting energy supplied from carbohydrates. There are different ways we can measure a body fat, so you can work out the percentage of body fat that you have. Skin fold calipers are the first one we'll look at, so they can be used to work out the body fat of a person. It's done by a device that pinches the skin, as you can see in the picture in the bottom right. The skin caliper then measures the millimeters of fat below the skin. The measurements have to be taken in an exact place, give good accurate data. Therefore, the millimeters of fat recorded can then work out a person's body fat using an equation which considers age and gender, making it reasonably accurate if the measurements are taken correctly. The pros of the skin fold test are that the tests are very cheap to do and they can be done anywhere with no extra equipment needed. You literally just need a little device that you can see in the picture. However, the weaknesses are that the tests do need a professional who has been trained in taking skin caliper tests to do it accurately, due to the fact measurements need to be taken in precise positions. The next one we're looking at is bioelectrical impedance analysis. So this sends a low electrical current through the body safely. As the current flows through the body, it will pass through fluids. However, it will resist passing through fat tissue, and therefore this is the impedance on the electrical current sense. The scales or handheld devices, which you can see in the photo, will then use an equation accounting for height and weight, which you'll have to enter beforehand to determine your body fat percentage. So basically, as the impulse is sent through your body and it resists going through fat, then it records that as like a certain amount of body fat. Strength of this test is that the person taking the test is well hydrated, then it will be very, very accurate. However, a weakness of the test is the fact that the bioelectrical impedance analysis uses body fat percentages. Therefore, this could cause it to be inaccurate for athletes. If a person taking the test is really hydrated as well, then the results will be accurate. However, if they're not, then it could be very inaccurate. So the last big piece of equipment we're looking at is the hydrodensitometry. This is where a person is weighed in water. There is a small tank of water which fully immerses the person, as you see the photo. The person is weighed out of water and then in the water. The difference between the two is then worked out and put into an equation where it accounts for trapped air in the lungs and the density of the water. The fat is not as heavy as the muscle, which means it floats in the water. If there are large differences between the two measurements, then it would mean that you have a high body fat percentage, while if they're similar, then the athlete will have a low body fat percentage. The strengths of this is that is very, very accurate, giving a strong result of the athlete's body fat. However, the tests are very exclusive due to the price it costs. This means that mainly elite athletes use this technique. Okay, looking at BMR now. So BMR stands for basal metabolic rate. This can be defined as the energy expenditure needed to survive and function at rest. As you can see, the guy's sleeping, so he's not really doing anything, and this is the energy expenditure he will need to do that. So this therefore means the amount of energy that is used to survive while doing absolutely nothing but resting. There are many different factors which affect BMR. One of these is the body composition. This affects BMR as muscles can burn more calories than fat. This is around 3 to 5 times more. Therefore, if an athlete was very muscular, then they will obviously have a higher BMR. Another factor is age. During growth, BMR is at its highest point. Therefore, as an athlete gets older, the muscle mass decreases, and this naturally slows down the BMR, which is about 2 to 5% every decade once you're over the age of 40, due to the increase in body fat and decrease in lean muscle mass, which typically occurs at this age. Another factor is gender. Generally, women have a lower BMR by 5 to 10% due to the fact men usually have more lean muscle mass and can build muscle easier. The last factor in the size is the size of the person. So, for example, if a person was very tall but thin, they'll have a higher BMR than a skinny short person. So this is due to the fact that the tall person having a greater body surface, like area of skin, meaning more body fat or muscle mass, which will need energy to function. So now we're going to talk about METs. So METs is the metabolic equivalent task, which works out energy used while exercising or doing a certain activity. This is done by oxygen consumption per unit of body weight during a minute. This therefore works out energy intensity. Therefore, total energy expenditure can be worked out by adding together BMR and METs. Therefore, the amount of energy needed while at rest is added to the energy used while exercising or doing certain activities, giving us the total energy expenditure. A football match has a MET level of 8. To work out the energy used, you need to times the MET weight, which is 8 by 3.5, then times that by the weight of the individual, which for example could be 68.1 kilograms, then divide that by 200 and times that by the duration of the exercise. Therefore, a 68.1 kilogram athlete playing a 60-minute match will burn 572 calories. This can then be added to the BMR of an athlete to work out their total energy expenditure. Energy intake and energy output can have 3 different outcomes. One outcome is weight gain. This is where energy intake is larger than energy output, meaning more energy is taken in than needed. Another outcome is weight loss. This is where energy intake is lower than the energy output, meaning you use more energy than you have consumed. The last outcome is weight maintenance. This is where energy output and energy intake is exactly the same and no weight is gained nor lost. Okay, so this is about RDA specific percentages. So RDA stands for recommended daily allowances. So men are recommended to intake 55 grams of protein, 300 grams of carbohydrates and 95 grams of fat a day. So 55 grams of protein is 220 kilocalories. 300 grams of carbs is 1,200 kilocalories, and 95 grams of fat is 855 kilocalories. Overall, this is 2,275 calories per day recommended for men to intake. Women are recommended to intake 45 grams of protein, 230 grams of carbs, 70 grams of fat. Therefore, this is 180 kilocalories of protein, 920 kilocalories of carbs, and 630 kilocalories of fat. Overall, this is 1,730 kilocalories. The RDA does not, however, account for different amounts of exercise done by athletes. This will increase their energy expenditure, meaning they need to increase the amount of calories they're eating a day. The RDA does not account for this and therefore cannot really be used by athletes who will need to intake a lot more than 2,275 or 1,730 calories a day. Okay, so calorimetry. So there's two types of calorimetry, direct and indirect. First, we're going to talk about direct. So direct calorimetry is where an airtight chamber, as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, measures the amount of heat produced from the body. There are coils in the ceiling, as you see in the photo, that of the airtight chamber, which are kept at a specific temperature. As the athlete begins to work out, the heat produced heats the coils. Therefore, the change in heat can be put into an equation which will determine the amount of heat produced from the athlete. One strength of this technique is the fact that it's very accurate. However, a weakness is that it can be very expensive. Indirect calorimetry estimates the heat production of an athlete. Oxygen consumption and respiratory gases are used to estimate the heat production. Douglas bags can be used to estimate the amount as they collect the respiratory gases, and then they can be analysed. The amount of oxygen can be used to estimate as 1 litre of oxygen is 4.8 kilocalories burnt off. So this equation can then be used to work out about how much the athlete is using. A strength of indirect is that many people will be able to afford it, as it's not as expensive as the direct approach. However, it is an estimate and can be argued that it's not as accurate. Depending on body weight and mass, there can be major differences in energy expenditure. For example, a lean, skinny male will need less energy to create movement when compared to a 150 kilogram male. The 150 kilogram male will be carrying a lot of excess weight in fat sources, which means they will need extra calorie intake to create the energy to move this way. So it would be like they're carrying around another person kind of thing. Okay, so this is looking at BMR, again, so basal metabolic rate. So to work out your own BMR, you must work out the equation for your height, for your age. For example, an 18-year-old male will be 17.686 times weight, which could be 66 kilograms, and then adding on 658.2, which gives you 1,825.5 kilocalories to consume daily to stay alive. However, there are many different factors which will affect someone's BMR. For example, age. Age will affect BMR as during growing years. BMR is typically higher to the fact that muscle and bones are all growing and they will need to be supplied with energy. Gender also plays a factor. For example, boys have a larger muscle mass than females. Therefore, if males have more muscle they need to control, then more energy will be needed to supply this movement. Climate will also have a factor on BMR, so if you're in a very cold environment, then a person will find they're shivering and shaking. This also uses energy and will need a higher BMR to therefore supply the energy for this movement. METS stands for metabolic equivalent task. This uses oxygen consumption combined with intensity of a level to give an estimate of energy expenditure. Therefore, this will allow a person to estimate all the calories they have used during different activities, and they can then add this to their BMR to work out their daily total energy expenditure. For example, during a day where you play a football match, during a 90-minute football match, 1,848 calories are used for energy. This is worked out by 8, which is the MET score of football, times 3.5 times 66 equals 1,848. Then you divide this by 200, and then you times it by the minutes played, which is 90 minutes for a football match, which equals 1,848. You can then add this to the BMR, which is obviously 1,825.5, which could be someone's BMR, and then you add 1,848, which gives you 3,673.5 which will be the person's daily energy expenditure.